The sound rolled across the conclave chamber like distant thunder. Layered voices, clicking mandibles, vibrating throat sacs, chittering harmonics from species that didn't even have mouths. 30 civilizations, 30 empires, all watching a single human officer stand alone in the center of the galaxy's most powerful political arena. And directly in front of him towered the species that had ended 3 wars before they'd even officially begun. Captain Jack Harrison didn't wipe the sweat from his palms. Cameras floated, drones recorded. This moment would be archived across known space. Earth's first formal address to the galactic community. No pressure. The chamber itself was a monument to power. Gravity-adjusted platforms spiraled upward. Bioluminescent banners pulsed in diplomatic colors. Atmosphere filters shimmered, blending oxygen, methane, and compounds humans couldn't pronounce. It smelled like metal, ozone, and tension. Jack's blue Earth Defense Fleet uniform looked almost childish next to armored exoskeletons, royal nutrient veils, and living symbiotic cloaks worn by other delegates. Humanity had been FTL capable for 5 years. 5. Some species here had been starfaring before Earth had mammals. Speak, pulsed the conclave mediator, a translucent drifting entity encased in a field of controlled gravity. Its voice vibrated directly inside Jack's skull. His heart pounded once, twice. He stepped forward. Representatives of the galactic community. Jack began, voice steady by sheer force of will. Humanity comes not as conquerors, but as partners. We bring cooperation, trade, culture, and a willingness to learn. Soft approval rippled through the chamber. Wing flicks, biolight flashes, chemical approval scents. Then came the stillness. Across the chamber, the Verkari delegation did not move. 4-armed, scaled, built like walking siege engines. Their armor wasn't ceremonial, it was scarred. Their empire controlled 15 star systems through what polite records called compulsory alignment. General DRA stood. The floor shook. Partners, his translator grated. Voice like rocks crushed in machinery. You mistake your position. Mammal. Micropause. Microfreeze. Every recording drone angled closer. Jack didn't step back. DRA's yellow eyes narrowed. We have studied humanity, your wars, your divisions, your short lifespans, your fragility. You are a species that survives by accident, not superiority. A murmur rolled outward. Jack inhaled slowly. Training, diplomacy, stay calm. We've made mistakes, he replied, but we've also grown. Cooperation built our future. That is why we're here. DRA descended from his platform. Each step rang like a hammer strike. You mistake tolerance for acceptance, DRA said. Your species has no standing here. Tension snapped tighter. Several delegations leaned back. Others leaned in. Jack felt it, the moment hanging over him like a blade. He could bow his head, apologize, retreat into safe diplomacy, or say the one thing Earth Command told him never to say unless there was no other option. DRA leaned close enough that Jack could see old battle scars between his scales. You are not equals, DRA said quietly. You are a curiosity, nothing more. Silence swallowed the chamber. Jack lifted his gaze and made the choice that would echo across the stars. General, he said evenly, with respect, you just made a very dangerous mistake. DRA blinked once. The chamber went perfectly still, because that wasn't diplomacy. That was a warning. The words hung in the conclave chamber like a live grenade. General DRA's upper right hand twitched toward the hilt of the energy blade mounted across his chest. Not drawn, not yet, but the message was clear. Around them, translators clicked. Atmospheric filters hummed louder. Several smaller species retreated behind diplomatic shields. Captain Jack Harrison didn't blink. A dangerous mistake, DRA repeated, his gravel-toned translator vibrating with restrained violence. Explain yourself, primate. Every eye, every lens, every neural sensor locked onto the human. Jack could feel the weight of 30 civilizations pressing down on his shoulders. Earth Command had prepared him for insults, for intimidation, even for staged humiliation. But not for this, because this wasn't just mockery anymore. This was positioning. You've studied our wars, Jack said calmly. Our divisions, our brutality. DRA's lip curled. But what you failed to study, Jack continued, is what happens when humanity stops fighting itself and focuses. A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. The Verkari had ended civilizations. Entire systems had surrendered at the sight of their fleet signatures. Their military doctrine was simple: strike fast, strike overwhelmingly, crush morale before resistance could organize. And humans had turned war into science. DRA let out a rumbling laugh. You threaten the Verkari Empire? You have one settled system and a handful of colony outposts. We command 15 star systems and a fleet that darkens suns. Jack nodded slowly. We know. That answer landed wrong. DRA's eyes narrowed again. Then your warning is stupidity. Jack shook his head. It's courtesy. A visible shift in the chamber. Courtesy? You see, Jack said, voice lowering, drawing every listener in. Humanity learned something unique during our violent history. He began pacing slowly, not submissive, not aggressive, measured. We don't win wars because we're stronger. We win because we adapt faster than our enemies expect. Every conflict reshaped us. Every defeat hardened us. Every mistake became doctrine. Micro-reactions flared from alien delegates. Curiosity, concern. DRA stepped closer. Empty words. Jack stopped walking. You've mapped our fleets, he said quietly. You've assessed our weapons, our ship count, our industrial output. Yes, DRA said. Jack held his gaze. But you haven't faced us. Silence again. The conclave mediator flickered uncertainly, gravity field destabilizing by a fraction. DRA's voice dropped lower. We would erase you in a cycle. Jack's jaw tightened. General, 5 years ago, we discovered faster-than-light travel. Yes, an infant civilization. And in those 5 years, Jack continued, we reverse-engineered 3 alien drive signatures from passive scans. We integrated captured debris from a pirate raid you dismissed as insignificant. We turned civilian mining platforms into kinetic defense grids. Now, the chamber was listening, fully listening. DRA's expression didn't change, but one of his lower hands flexed. You are boasting. No, Jack said. I'm informing you. A Verkari aide leaned toward DRA and whispered in their native tongue. Jack didn't understand the words, but he recognized the look. Recalculation. You are still insignificant, DRA said, though the certainty had thinned. Your species fractures under pressure. History proves it. Jack's eyes hardened. Yes, he agreed. And when humans fracture, we become unpredictable. A subtle chill rippled outward. Unpredictable was not a quality galactic powers admired. It was one they feared. DRA leaned closer, towering. Be careful, Captain. Words have consequences. Jack met his stare without flinching. So do threats. And that's when it happened. A notification pulse flashed across the Verkari delegation's holographic display. Emergency priority. DRA's eyes flicked down for half a second. Half a second was all it took for the chamber to realize something had just changed. It was subtle. A flicker in his pupils, a tightening of his jawline, but every predator in the chamber recognized it. Something was wrong. The emergency glyph pulsed again across the Verkari tactical display. Red, then crimson, then flashing white. High command priority. DRA straightened slowly, masking it well. Too well. Continue your speech, he growled at Jack, as if nothing had happened. But the illusion had cracked. Jack didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He simply stood there, waiting. The conclave mediator's gravity bubble shimmered with uncertainty. General DRA, it pulsed telepathically. Is there a matter affecting diplomatic proceedings? No, DRA snapped. The lie echoed. Another alert. Louder. The holographic projection expanded automatically, security protocol overriding discretion. And suddenly, everyone could see it. A Verkari border system. Outer defensive perimeter. 3 unidentified warp signatures had emerged inside their patrol exclusion zone. Inside. Impossible. Murmurs erupted across the chamber. Data streams began flying between delegations. Analysts whispered. Military attaches leaned forward. DRA's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. This is a localized incident. Jack tilted his head slightly. Is it? He asked. The projection zoomed in. Verkari defense cruisers were repositioning, weapon arrays powering up, planetary shields cycling. Then the unknown ships came into visual range. They were smaller than Verkari battlecruisers, sleeker, modular. Their hull plating carried no known imperial signature. But every species in the room recognized the design language. Human. Gasps, chemical bursts of shock, electromagnetic pulses of alarm. That's impossible, hissed a crystalline delegate from the Outer Rim systems. Earth has no fleet capacity for deep projection. DRA's claws dug into the stone platform. Jack folded his hands behind his back. You mapped our known fleet, he said calmly. You monitored our public shipyards. The hologram updated again. A second wave of warp signatures appeared. Then a third. All human. Strategically dispersed. Perfectly synchronized. How? Whispered someone. Jack didn't raise his voice. 5 years, he said. You thought we were learning how to join your community. The projection shifted to tactical overlay. Human vessels were deploying something small, fast-moving objects that scattered across the system like metallic pollen. Minefield, suggested one delegate. No, corrected another. Too organized. DRA turned slowly toward Jack. What have you done? Jack's expression didn't change. We demonstrated reach. The tactical overlay flashed again. Every Verkari military satellite in the system went dark. Not destroyed. Disabled. Precision electromagnetic strikes. Non-lethal. Intentional. The chamber fell into stunned silence. You attacked a sovereign empire. DRA said, voice barely controlled. You have declared war. Jack shook his head. No, General. He stepped forward just enough that the cameras caught his face clearly. We showed you that if humanity ever decides to fight, we won't do it on your terms. Another update flashed across the projection. Human ships were withdrawing. No pursuit. No bombardment. No casualties reported. A message pinged across Verkari command frequencies. Open channel. DRA's display auto-translated. It allowed. Demonstration complete. This was restraint. The words echoed through the conclave chamber. Not a threat. Not a boast. A statement. DRA's breathing deepened. You infiltrated our defenses. He said slowly. You humiliated the Verkari Empire before 30 civilizations. Jack met his gaze. You humiliated us first. Silence. Heavy. Electric. And then DRA said the one sentence that changed everything. You think this deters us? He stepped closer, towering once more. You have just guaranteed your extinction. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as emergency energy reroutes began activating across Verkari space. Because this time, they weren't just posturing, they were mobilizing. It began with silence. The conclave chamber, once a storm of whispers and data streams, fell into a vacuum of sound. Even species that communicated through light or pheromones went still, because everyone understood what mobilization meant when it came to the Verkari. Planets burned, stars blockaded, civilizations erased as examples. General DRA's armor plates shifted, locking into combat configuration with a low mechanical hiss. His translator no longer softened his voice. "You forced our hand," he said. Jack didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't have one. This was a diplomatic summit. Supposedly, General, the conclave mediator pulsed urgently. "Hostile escalation within Council space violates." "Silence," DRA thundered, and the mediator obeyed. That scared everyone more than the threat. A live strategic feed opened above the chamber without being requested. Verkari High Command, 15 System Empire, full military activation, tree branching like a metallic nervous system. Fleet groups awakening from orbital docks, carrier spines rotating, planetary defense grids charging. It was overwhelming. Intentionally, several minor species began transmitting surrender protocols preemptively, just in case. Jack watched it all with a face carved from stone. "You could have left today with allies," he said quietly. "Trade, technology exchange, cultural integration." DRA's eyes burned. "We do not ally with inferiors." Jack nodded once. Then this was inevitable. That word hit. Inevitable. DRA stepped forward. "Your demonstration was clever, but cleverness does not win wars." "No," Jack agreed. "Preparation does." DRA paused. Just long enough. Jack tapped a control on his wrist. The chamber lights dimmed as an unauthorized signal piggybacked onto the conclave projection system. Gasps. A star map appeared. Not Earth space. Verkari space. Highlighted nodes spread like a web. "Impossible," whispered a data intelligence species in harmonic tones. "That's deep network infrastructure." Jack spoke evenly. "5 years ago, we didn't know you existed. Today, we mapped your logistics, comm relays, supply depots, refueling corridors, and drone foundries." The map zoomed. Red markers blinked to life. Thousands. DRA's composure cracked. Just a fracture. Fabrication. Jack didn't look at him. "General, when you build an empire through conquest, you leave scars. Scars are easy to trace." Another layer appeared. Predictive strike models. "Human." The chamber temperature seemed to drop. "You prepared for war before first contact." DRA accused. Jack finally met his eyes. "No, a beat. We prepared in case someone like you existed." That landed harder than any insult. DRA's claws flexed. "You think data equals victory." Jack's voice lowered. "No, but it means if you strike Earth." The map shifted again. Not an attack plan, a cascade. Verkari supply chains collapsing in simulation. Shipyards isolated. Outer colonies cut off. Internal revolts, probability spikes. Economic suffocation. Systemic paralysis. War without front lines. The room understood. This wasn't a species built for glorious battlefield charges. This was a species that would dismantle you while you were still roaring. DRA's breathing grew heavier. "You are bluffing," he said. Jack held his stare. "Then test us." Silence stretched, because everyone realized the truth at the same time. The most dangerous species in the room hadn't raised their voice once. A new alert flashed across Verkari Command. Human fleets had just jumped again, not toward core worlds, toward logistics hubs. DRA's head snapped toward the projection, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. They didn't expect them to fight like predators. The conclave display fractured into multiple tactical windows, Verkari logistics hubs, fuel depots, drone assembly rings, slipstream calibration stations, lit up one by one, not with explosions, with outages. Power failure, one delegate asked. No, corrected a machine symbiote species, their voice a chorus of layered tones. System override. External. DRA's command feed scrolled faster now. Officers barking orders. Fleets rerouting. Emergency jump calculations. But every solution created a new problem. Routes overlapped. Traffic bottlenecked. Refueling queues extended into vulnerable space. Jack watched quietly. We studied your wars, he said. You win fast. Shock. Overwhelm. Decapitate leadership. Yes, DRA growled. You never had to fight an enemy that refused to meet you where you're strong. Another hub went dark, then another. The red markers on Jack's projection didn't flash like weapons fire. They pulsed like a spreading infection. Cyber intrusion vectors, whispered the crystalline delegate, layered with electronic warfare. And something else. Jack nodded faintly. Humanity's first global war in the digital age taught us something important. DRA didn't ask. Jack answered anyway. Systems are softer than soldiers. A Verkari tactical commander appeared on DRA's display, scales dulled with stress. General, drone production is at 40%. Autonomous navigation grids are desynchronizing. We are experiencing internal interference. Internal. The word echoed. DRA turned slowly back to Jack. You infiltrated us before this summit. Jack didn't deny it. We sent no bombs, he said. No bioweapons. No planetary strikes. Yet, DRA spat. Jack held his gaze. Because this is the last off-ramp. That made several delegates stiffen. This isn't conquest, Jack continued. It's a demonstration of consequence. The projection shifted again. Probability trees. If Verkari fleets attack Earth, 78% chance of prolonged multi-front attrition. If they escalate to total war, 62% chance of internal system collapse within 2 cycles. If they stand down, 94% chance of stabilized coexistence. The numbers weren't propaganda. They were math. Cold. Impersonal. Terrifying. You're waging war already, DRA said. No, Jack replied. We're showing you what war with us looks like before you choose it. Another alert. Outer Verkari colony. Civil unrest. Supply delay. Food shipment rerouted after NAV grid glitch. Not an attack. A side effect. The conclave chamber shifted emotionally, fear turning into realization. Humans didn't need to destroy you. They just needed to make your empire impossible to maintain. DRA's voice lowered. You would destabilize civilian populations. Jack's jaw tightened. We don't want to. That's why we're here. Talking. A long pause. Call off mobilization. Jack said, return to diplomacy. We shut everything down. You keep your empire. We build something better. DRA's claws dug into the platform, leaving grooves in the stone. Pride warred with survival. Behind him, his aides exchanged glances, because they could see it too. This wasn't a battle they were prepared for. And then a final alert hit. Core system communications lag spike. Central command latency rising. The infection had reached the heart. DRA looked at the data, then at Jack. And for the first time, the general of a 15-system empire hesitated. They fall because they refuse to adapt. General DRA stood frozen beneath the weight of 15-star systems. Across the chamber, every delegate understood the same brutal truth. If the Verkari pushed this further, they might win battles, but they would lose their empire. Another alert flickered across DRA's command feed. Core system latency now affecting fleet coordination. Not catastrophic, not yet, but in warfare, hesitation kills. General, one of his aides whispered urgently in their native tongue. Internal probability models align with human projections. Translation wasn't necessary. The chamber could read body language. DRA's lower hands curled inward. You engineered this entire confrontation, he accused Jack quietly. Jack shook his head. No, you did. A long pause. You chose humiliation over diplomacy, Jack continued. You chose escalation over curiosity. DRA's breathing slowed, measured, calculating. You think you are the most lethal species alive. DRA asked. Jack didn't smile. We don't want to be. That line landed harder than any threat, because it wasn't arrogance. It was restraint. The conclave mediator finally pulsed again, cautiously. General DRA, Captain Harrison. This assembly was convened for integration, not annihilation. DRA didn't look at it. He looked at the map. The red markers weren't expanding anymore. They were waiting. Human fleets held position near logistics hubs, but did not fire. Interference levels stabilized at disruptive, not destructive. Jack spoke one final time. We learned something from centuries of self-inflicted wars. The chamber leaned in. The most powerful move isn't striking first. A beat. It's proving you could have. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. DRA straightened to his full height. The tension was unbearable. Across Verkari space, fleets remained armed. Weapons hot. Drives primed. One command would ignite the largest interstellar war in recorded history. Or one command would end it. DRA tapped a control on his armored wrist. Across the projection, Verkari mobilization indicators began to dim. One fleet powering down, then another. Planetary defense grids returning to standby. The latency spikes across their core systems stabilized as human interference quietly withdrew, line by line. Gasps filled the chamber. It was happening. DRA's voice was steady when he finally spoke. You will remove your presence from our logistics sectors. Jack nodded once. It's already underway. Verification pings confirmed it. Human ships were jumping out. Clean, disciplined, controlled. DRA turned to face the entire conclave. The Verkari Empire recognizes humanity as strategically significant. That was as close to respect as his species came. A ripple moved through the chamber. Jack exhaled slowly for the first time since he'd spoken that warning. But DRA wasn't finished. He stepped closer one last time. Understand this, Captain, he said quietly. You did not win. Jack met his gaze evenly. We didn't need to. A pause. Then DRA said the words no one expected. We will negotiate. And just like that, the war that almost reshaped the galaxy ended before the first shot was fired. But something had changed forever, because now the galaxy knew humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the oldest. They weren't the largest. They were something far more dangerous. They were adaptive. And if you pushed them, they pushed back smarter. Not as the day war began, but as the day war became obsolete. The grand hall of the conclave no longer buzzed with mockery. It vibrated with recalculation. Delegates who had arrived expecting to witness humanity's formal debut had instead witnessed something far more unsettling, a species that could dismantle an empire without firing a single shot. Captain Jack Harrison stood at the center of it all, suddenly very aware that history had just shifted its trajectory. The Verkari fleets were standing down. Human interference protocols were retracting in perfect synchronization. No collateral damage, no civilian casualties, no system-wide collapse, just proof. And proof in politics was power. The conclave mediator floated higher, its bioluminescent tendrils brightening. The Assembly recognizes a new strategic equilibrium. Strategic equilibrium. Diplomatic language for. No one wants to test them. General DRA faced the chamber again. His armor plates had unlocked, returning to neutral configuration. The Verkari Empire acknowledges humanity as a sovereign equal in galactic affairs, he declared. A shockwave of reaction rippled outward. Equal. 5 years into interstellar travel. Equal to a 15-system military empire. Jack didn't smile. He didn't celebrate, because this wasn't about pride. It was about survival. DRA turned to him one final time. You forced us to see you, the general said. Few survive that process. Jack's reply was quiet. We didn't force you. A pause. We just refused to disappear. That line echoed across translation matrices, across recording drones, across 100 future history archives. One by one, other delegations began transmitting signals to Earth's channel, trade inquiries, security partnerships, technology exchanges, because in a galaxy ruled by overwhelming force, a species that weaponized intelligence was suddenly very attractive. A crystalline delegate projected softly, humanity demonstrates asymmetrical dominance doctrine. Fascinating. A winged envoy from a border system added, perhaps alliance would be mutually beneficial. The balance of power had tilted, not through conquest, but through competence. DRA leaned closer to Jack, voice lowered for privacy. You understand something now, Captain, he said. Every species in this room will fear you. Jack met his gaze. Fear keeps peace longer than pride. DRA studied him. Then, slowly, he extended one clawed hand. Not in submission, in acknowledgement. After the smallest hesitation, Jack extended his own. Skin against scale. Fragile flesh against hardened armor. The handshake lasted less than 2 seconds. But it was enough, because across the galaxy, one message was now undeniable. Humanity would not be bullied, would not be underestimated, and would never fight the war you expected them to fight. As the conclave adjourned and delegates dispersed, the recording drones transmitted the final headline across countless networks. Congratulations, you just declared war on the most lethal species alive. And somewhere, in quiet Earth command rooms far from alien eyes, strategists powered down contingency plans they hoped never to use again, because the most lethal species in the room had just chosen peace. For now,